Hi, my loves. It's Danielle Mercurio, and we have a beautiful guest episode happening right now. We are switching gears over to a reality star, a different kind of star, if you will. And I'm interviewing Nancy Volpe Beringer, and she made history as one of the oldest contestants on Project Runway. It was Project Runway season 19. She was the runner-up of that season. I remember watching in Philadelphia, and I remember her being from Philadelphia. I was rooting for her the entire time. She now is the owner of The Vault. It's the very first ever online resale consignment shop, which caters to people with or without disabilities. The link is in the show notes if you want to check that out. Enjoy my interview with the amazing, beautiful, open-hearted Nancy. All right. Hi, Nancy. It's so good to have you.
Thank you. It's been great to be here.
Yes, I'm super stoked. I found you. I'm a big Bravo fan. I've watched Project Runway pretty much from day one, and you really stood out to me in your season. I think, first of all, because I'm a Philly girl. I'm not located in Philly right now, but I went to Temple. I've lived in and out of Philly for the last 20 years, I feel like. So anyone that has any kind of connection to that city, I'm already the number one fan.
There you go. I love it.
Yeah. Have you always been in Philly? What's your connection?
Well, physically, I was born there, but then we moved out into the suburbs, grew up in Levittown, and it wasn't until my son moved back and then I enrolled in Drexel that I moved into the city.
Okay.
I was recently married when I started a fashion school, and the second year, my husband said, if you ever want to live in the city, now's the chance. I'm like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And moved into the city until the fire happened, so...
Oh, there was a fire. Oh, I remember this now. When was the fire? Was it after the show aired?
It was afterwards, of course, during the pandemic.
Okay. I remember seeing it on your Instagram. Is everything okay now?
It's fine. I mean, I found a temporary rental that did not work out too well, but it was okay. And then I now have a place. Just I still consider myself Philly because it's just right outside of Philly.
Yeah. No, that still counts.
It counts. Yes.
Yes. No, and clearly you're closer than I am. I'm in South Carolina now, so
there you go.
But I love my Philly community very much so. Okay, so you stood out to me because of Philly, but then clearly other reasons, talents, all the things. And what I also really appreciate, and for anyone that hasn't seen the season or kind of why I wanted to bring Nancy on, she really stands for sustainability, for inclusivity, in making sure that there are options when it comes to fashion, not just, and we're seeing that in fashion in general. And I've seen the show Project Runway also, meet the times where they're at. But I really feel like you stepped forth in a way that wasn't because it was a trend. It wasn't because I could see that this is where fashion is going, so let me jump in. It feels like everything that you stand for when it comes to your fashion is deep rooted within you. And I'm so curious where that comes from.
It is deep rooted, and I didn't know because, again, it was an organic process. I just let it happen. I didn't give it thought. Again, it wasn't as you said, follow trends. And it wasn't until with all the multiple interviews during the Project Runway process and the finale, and where I saw where my art and craft was leading me, that I realized it was from my inner core. And probably growing up, I had 12 years of Catholic school in uniforms. The only time I got to express myself as a very shy girl was when I sewed something in high school for the football game. And I think the inclusivity and accessibility, I believe, is really deep rooted in that it comes from being a survivor of adult bullying. So I know what it feels like to be left out and to not feel like you have a voice. And I don't want anybody to be left out of fashion. Fashion, again, we're talking about clothes, but it's more than clothes. It's a way to express yourself. It's a way to empower you. It's important. It's an important part of our lives. And for people not to have the same options I do, I just think is wrong.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, fashion for me, I struggled with body dysmorphia growing up, and it was hard for me to figure out my body, but for whatever reason, I could figure out clothes. So even though I didn't always feel comfortable in my skin, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't always make that connection. I could go to clothes and I could say, well, if I can't figure out my body, I can figure out my outfit for today. And clothes kind of became a little bit of a savior for me to be able to use clothes as a way to express myself when I felt so foreign within my own body.
Absolutely. And that's the importance. That's the power of fashion.
Mm-hmm. I love that so much. And, so when you went to fashion school, what were you doing prior to making that jump over?
So I had a crazy path, but I think it was all the different paths
Mm-hmm.
and the journey prepared me to be a fearless designer. So immediately before then, I worked for Education Association as a teacher in school, employee advocate. And the most recent job I had was I got the big promotion and I was managing a group. We did community involvement, working with parents in the community, advocating for the rights of teachers. I did leadership development. I was always creating things.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I went and got my undergrad at age 30 when I became a single parent. And that's when I taught for 5 years.
Okay.
So again, there's always I think a reason why I had this opportunity led to this opportunity and prepared me for where I really belong.
Yeah. And it's so, I so appreciate you sharing that, because it is about looking back and seeing how it all connects the dots. Sometimes we get so hyper focused on like, what's my purpose? What am I here to do? And it's, you're showcasing like it's evolving, it's one piece after the other. It's stepping into this role and learning from here and then moving into this. And then, when you look back, you can see how it all brought you to where you are now.
I mean, absolutely. And I really believe, as crazy as it sounds, that from the time I first watched Project Runway, like you, I've seen every season, every episode, and I was just about ready to turn 50. I think it was my destiny. I truly believe, for some crazy reason, it was my destiny. And then when I got on the show and got to design for Tatiana McFadden, the Paralympiad, the fastest wheelchair racer woman in the world, which I didn't know at the time, I thought, this is why I'm here. This is why I got into fashion, and this is why I'm on Project Runway. It is for this moment that is going to change my life forever. And it did.
Absolutely. I have chills. Well, we love destiny over here. And so did you have any resistance around applying for the show? Was there thoughts around, I am 50, who am I to do this? Was there any imposter kind of energy?
Well, so when I applied, so I graduated at 61.
Okay.
It was a 3-year program.
Okay.
And I had to apply right away because I was 61 and they have never even had anyone in their 60s. And I thought, I got to do it. I don't have the experience. So that was a bit fearful. I'm not an illustrator, and I know they want you to illustrate. I had to do it through my program, but it's not something natural. But I did it anyway because I just knew I had to. But when I first went to apply for it, I needed to do a video. And I called my son up, who's a videographer. And I said, I need you to help me do a video. And when I told him what it's for, he begged me not to do it.
Really?
Yes.
What was his fear?
2 things. I think, well, naturally, who wants their mother to be on a reality TV show?
This is very true. Yes. Okay.
I mean, I can't blame him when I think about what I want my mother. But I think the real thing was to protect me, because he has seen the damage that the bullying caused me, and the pain and the sadness. And it's a tough world out there, and social media can be brutal, and he didn't want to subject me to that. And so I said, okay, I got it. Well, then I just called up my friend who's a producer, and she did the video for me.
That's so funny.
I didn't get on the first time, which was actually meant to be, and a blessing that I didn't get on the first time.
Right. So you would have been technically on the prior season if you would have gotten on.
Well, no, if the first time, I actually would have been on Lifetime.
Oh, I remember when they were doing that little, I
would have been on Lifetime, and then I applied the next year, and it was still on Lifetime, and I made it to where I think they were getting ready to make the calls.
Okay.
On, and that's when the Harvey Weinstein scandal broke.
Got it.
And it moved to Bravo. So they must have already been applying, but I had been in that other process. So when I waited to the following year, I applied, and the first time with Bravo is when I made it on.
Wow.
But it was great because when I didn't get on the first time, I went, okay, again, there is a reason. It's giving me at least another year to prepare. And I really did train like an athlete. I took a short course over in London at Central St. Martin's, the #1 fashion school. That's where Alexander McQueen went. I took an online intensive draping class out of Paris. I took a couture class out of Baltimore. And all during this, I was in physical therapy for 2 years because of all the arthritis that developed in my neck. I have very limited range. So I trained like I was an athlete to prepare.
Wow.
When I knew I would get on the show. Again, it sounds crazy, maybe egotistical. I just knew that was my destiny.
Yeah. Yeah. No, trust me. It's not crazy over in our world over here on the show. You know, it's that feeling and trusting that feeling, trusting that sensation, especially when it doesn't make sense to the world. Right. And there were so many reasons for you to not have it make sense. And even like the fact that your son was like, I don't know if I can support you in this. Like, I care about you. I don't want to see, you know, it backfire. And you're just like, thank you. And next I'm going to find someone else. And it totally, like, to your point, worked out that you weren't on the Lifetime version of it. And you were in your season for good reason, because you really served a purpose being on that season. And, you know, for those that haven't watched it, she made it to the finals. And again, to have the access to the individuals that you did was just divine.
Yes.
Yes. This is what we're talking about. And what I love too, you know, that you're sharing, like, we all have destiny. We all have these moments. I totally believe that if you're willing to show up for something, it will show up for you back. But that doesn't always mean overnight. You know, it doesn't always mean, okay, I know I'm meant to do this. Let me apply and I'm in. You know, it could work that way, but it may take more time. And I appreciate that you honored the additional time that was necessary for this to come together. Thank you. Mm-hmm. That's a big piece of it. What keeps you motivated? Like, what kept you motivated in those moments when you were, quote unquote, training like an athlete?
Well, the passion for what I was doing. I never understood my need to create in all my jobs. I always was creating, even in the business sector. Mm-hmm. But I finally understood that creating is my oxygen. It's something I need to do. Mm-hmm. And it was like my first day at school, I was like, oh, I'm home. This is where I belong. Mm-hmm. And I forgot that I looked different than the other students, but I felt like I fit in so well. It was all during that time in school and afterwards. You're talking 7 days a week, 15 hours. A 12-hour day would have seemed like a silly day. Mm-hmm. But my studio was right next to the apartment where we lived. So I would work all day, and then my husband and I would take a break. We would go out to get something to eat, and then we get off the elevator. He'd head back in, and I'd head back into my studio. Or I'd have hand sewing set up for us to watch TV. And then what would happen was I might fall asleep, and then I go to shut down my studio, and I have my second or third wind, and then I'm in there for like 2 or 3. It was just it was a way to express myself. Mm-hmm. And I felt so fortunate. I felt so blessed. Again, I always knew there had to be a reason, and I think I found it.
Right. And it's all come full circle. What would you say to someone that is just getting started or is a creative? And one of the biggest fears that I see, whether it's in my community as like a spiritual entrepreneur or the artist community, there is a little bit of that lack mentality, that scarcity. It's like, I know I want to go for this, but how will I be supported? How will I pay my bills? What do you say to that person?
Well, I was fortunate. Mm-hmm. There's something about me, again, being an entrepreneurial spirit, and maybe you could say frugal, but sure. I can remember, again, I was a very shy girl, but I can remember putting an ad in the little weekly when I was 12 years old to do ironing and mending. I think by then I had taken my summer school class, one sewing class, because I was invited to go on a trip to my uncle. And so I had to save up money. So I would, iron shirts. So I was always like earning money. And then I didn't go to college. All my friends did. And so to afford an apartment, which was by myself, my first job right out of high school, I was 17. Mm-hmm. And it was either like $100, $125 gross a week. And I had a savings bond taken out of every paycheck to, again, be able to, and I would, from my paycheck, buy things for my apartment. So a little over a year later, I was able to move in. Well, that followed all the time I was working. So I was always contributing. If there was a profit sharing or a pension, I always contributed. I didn't take all my vacation, my sick days. I'm not recommending that this is a healthy lifestyle. It was just mine.
Sure.
So when I made that decision to walk away from my job at the pinnacle of my success, where I was like, when I was teaching, I worked 3, 4, at one time 5 jobs as a single parent. So I knew how lucky I was to be now in a position with this management job where I was secure, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't creating. But because I had been saving and I had vacation and unused sick time, I was able to take that and pay for my education. And even when I was in school, I did a grad assistant because it paid for some of my tuition and I got stipends. So I always have been very smart as far as my money, not wanting to go in debt, but saving.
Yeah.
So it's not just like, oh, I'm following my dream. It was years and years and years in the making to be able to afford to do it.
Right.
And I also was lucky in that I had a home now. I'd sold my home where I raised my kids and I was married. So again, I don't want people to think, oh, it's the easiest thing to do. But the other thing that was really important, and it happened in all my jobs, I finally heard it expressed by Elaine Welteroth. She wrote about it in her book, and she was actually promoting our season.
Okay.
And she was talking about the contestants, and she said, oh, and wait till you see, we have this one contestant who is older than normal, but she has no fear. She's just fearless. And her quote, and that's how I didn't realize it, is like, make fear your friend. And I didn't realize my whole life, that's what I had been doing. When I was 12 years old and my mother said we all had to go to the 4 oldest had to go to summer school just to get out of the house. We had to sign up for 2 classes. I signed up for a sewing class. And the second class I signed up for makes no sense because they had arts and crafts, theater, all fun things. For public speaking.
No way.
Shy girl. Now, what did that come from? But I think it was then, facing my fear. When I was in kindergarten, my first day of school, my father was going to walk me to the bus stop. And apparently he was running late. And the story goes that, well, I didn't want to be late. So I walked by myself so I wouldn't be late to the bus stop. I just faced
independent.
And all my jobs, like I've got the jobs I get, I don't know how to do. When I went to teach at a vocational school, it was antiquated. I was the only business teacher with all these antiquated computers. But that was the fun of it. So I love doing things I don't know how to do. And that has served me well. And I think that's why on Project Runway and in fashion school, being fearless. I mean, what's the worst thing? When you have been through some challenges or you've seen tragedy around your life or in the world, why should you be fearful of expressing your craft?
That's so true. It's when everything is going on in the world, it's even more permission and more responsibility to show up with your gifts and do it in a way where you're satisfying your own needs, but you're also being of service at the same time. And you do that really well. I feel like you honor your gifts while also being able to contribute. And that's a really nice balance to have.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I friend your fear, so important. And also to your point around like the money component, it is follow your dreams, but it's also invest in your dreams and understand that sometimes what you're doing, it might not be making you happy. It might not be exactly what you want to be doing that day, but the money that's coming in or whatever it is that you're profiting can be an investment for your future dreams and can hold space for you later. So it might feel like life right now is not coming together. You're not doing what it is that you love, but keep going and recognize that there will be a day where you will have that space. You will have that opportunity.
Perfectly said.
Yeah. So I appreciate that because that was a little bit of my journey too, in getting started. And I've talked about it on the show, but it wasn't, I tried that in the beginning. I tried to just be like, oh, let me just jump and do this. Right. And be a life coach and be supported and have people find me, but it wasn't that simple. And I realized there was so much more that I needed to do from an inner perspective as far as like my own confidence. And then also to your point, training, it takes time to really get into a groove, even if it is your natural talent. I feel you on all of that. So talk a little bit more about sustainability in fashion. I'd love to kind of hear your take on where it currently stands.
Oh, there's so many ways for designers to be sustainable and consumers. People should just Google how much, what's crazy is how much fashion is thrown out in our oh my God, just millions and millions of dollars, billions of dollars of garments. So what happens is an overproduction, and Some designers, I think fewer than there used to be, they didn't want them to lose their price point. So instead of putting them into these discount stores, they would throw out their excess.
Wow.
That's one way. And fabric. So I'm able to buy fabric, dead ends of bolts from designer bolts at a wholesale price. So that's one way I can be sustainable by the fabric. Consumers can be sustainable by, thinking about fast fashion. You can go into consignment stores. You can get higher end, which is where my platform is, higher end, but you can also go into thrift stores and buy things that way. So you're giving them another life. And even in some thrift stores where things are donated, some at the end of the day, they're discarded. So that's one way. In my Project Runway collection, my goal was to try to do a zero waste collection, which I don't think they fully appreciated. The difficulty and why there were fewer seams, because the more seams you have, the more waste. So I tried to, if I had anything left over on a design, I turned it into an accessory or used it in another piece or another design. So my particular way was in the type of fabric I bought, but also in designing zero waste.
So you have to be more intentional and really more mindful around what it is that you're doing. It's, I'm imagining it's way easier, like you said, to just take a bunch of fabric, use what works, discard the rest. But if you're being in that zero waste mentality, it's like not only being so meticulous, but everything has a place and a purpose.
Absolutely.
I can see that. For sure. And, I've grown to really love, I think when I was younger, I got into fast fashion because it was just kind of what you did, right? Like that's where your friends shop. That's what was at the mall. And I didn't know any better, right? Like you don't know what you don't know when it comes to fashion. And over the years, I've really grown to appreciate recycled clothing. I used to do like the Rent the Runway all the time and just kind of finding different ways to use fashion as a way to express myself, but do it in a way where it involves resale or it involves like clothing shares. And I find that I really, really enjoy it. And I've also found like how much I'm turned off by fast fashion places, or like walking in a store and being like, I'm seeing like 50 of the same thing. What's the fun in that? Like, where's the treasure hunt, if you will? So that's one of the things I love about, consignment stores and doing things in that way. So tell me a little bit more. So I want to kind of highlight your main focus right now, which is the Vault. And so this is the first ever online retail space that is a consignment shop and also caters to individuals that may have disabilities or, not at all, right? So can you share a little bit more around the mission and the concept?
Well, it's what we were saying earlier. You don't know where your path has taken you, but if you're open. So what happened? I mentioned there was a fire.
Yes.
So when I was away and I was in the middle of the night, there was an electrical fire in the building's basement. So everybody was evacuated and then displaced. So my team went with trash bags and they just started loading things up. There was no electricity. Wow. There was only one freight elevator working. And while I was away, I found a rental. And this was right during the pandemic. So that was a really scary time at the beginning of the pandemic. And fortunately, I found a rental with a lot of different entrances. And so we could be safe because you really then you had no idea where it was going. But what happened was, like, when you've seen these cartoon shows or things or shows where they open a closet and everything falls out.
Yes.
The closet's jammed packed with my personal fashion from when I was working, when I thrifted, when I consigned, and I have beautiful pieces. But when they're all stuffed in a closet, you don't know how much you have. Well, when you move and you start unpacking everything, I went, oh my gosh, I got so much stuff. And when I did go out pre-pandemic, people wanted to see my own designs.
Yes.
So I really wanted to, after Project Runway, to create an adaptive line of fashion. And that's where I was headed until we went shelter in place. So I thought, well, why don't I try? I wasn't making money because nobody was going out. So I didn't do any custom work. So I thought, why don't I try to sell off my beautiful pieces? But instead of going to a consignment store, because they take a percentage, let me see through my following if I can create my own platform. So that's where we started. We started inventorying and product shots. And then I woke up shortly one morning and I went, wait a minute, why am I waiting to be an adaptive designer? And I started researching and I started going on to some live and some Zooms into the adaptive world. And I found out nowhere does it exist. so that you see these amazing resale shops or online. But if you have unique body needs and you're disabled or medical needs, you just have to buy it as is, and as you're used to it, make it work. And it doesn't always work. So where you might see in a online retail shop, there's a drop-down menu. You pick your size, you pick the print or the color. My drop-down menu has adaptive features, which are included in the price. I don't charge. And I also would do a virtual consultation. So it's new. I mean, it's not out there yet, but what's really exciting is we just found out a few weeks ago, I'm one of 3 finalists for a new retail concept for Fashion Group International as an emerging designer. So that's really exciting. But again, if it wasn't for the fire, if it wasn't for the fire and me having to, and the pandemic, unfortunately, because again, I was on the top of the world with Project Runway. Thursday, March 12th was the finale. And even though I didn't win, but I had a lot of things lined up. Well, Monday we were shelter in place.
Right.
So, but without all that, I would not be where I'm at. And I really feel now where I'll do custom work. I don't think my role in fashion is to create more out there, but to be a voice of the disabled and to give them accessibility to fashion.
I feel that so greatly. And I'm so glad that, and I'm just so glad that you are so able and open to look at it from that perspective and to be, and I'm sure there was so much disappointment and heartache and so many different feelings that you were feeling after the finale and then shelter in place, right? Back to the space that you're in now, the voice that you have, and also triumphing once again from a moment that could have been a real buzzkill, coming off the finale, moving into shelter at home, all these different aspects that you did not intend for in any way, to then take it to the place that you're in now, not only being a voice, but really honoring how you feel about sustainable fashion, that lifestyle, and really giving the world options when it comes to fashion in a new and innovative way. So I really honor that.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just got back from Florida yesterday. My sister has some health issues. So I was down there helping her. And that's where I had done a lot of consigning. And because so much was taken from my closet that's on the Vault by Volpe Beringer, I wanted to have a broader range of sizes. So I started looking at thrift stores and consignment shops for larger sizes. And that's eye-opening. There's less to choose from. I mean, I found some amazing finds. We're right now doing product shots. We're going to get them on our site by next week. But that in itself told a story of it's harder for some people to be accessible.
Yes. Yeah. So I feel like I feel like you're just going to keep uncovering more and more with this journey that you're on. And it's amazing. So the Vault, is it live as of right now?
Yes, it is. The Vault by Volpe Beringer. It's live and we're open for business.
Okay. Amazing. I was scoping it out. I already signed up I saw you get a little discount when you go to the homepage.
Yes, you do.
Yes. I already signed up for that. So I will be scoping it out and looking for something myself.
Great. Thank you. I love it.
Yeah. So thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today.
I appreciate it. I love sharing my story, and I hope, it inspires people. And again, my age, yes, mentally, it's not an issue. Physically, you got to be realistic. It does play a part, but it shouldn't let you stop. I mean, I wake up every day in pain, but I think it's because of being a designer where I'm staying active. It actually helps through the day where pain dissipates a little. So there's a reason for that too.
Absolutely. Your attitude's amazing. Thank you so much. We're going to share all of your details and info in the show notes. The main thing is check out the Vault, and you're mainly hanging out on Instagram, right?
Yes, Instagram. And that's been again, I want to give a shout out to all my Instagram followers helping me through the pandemic. You keep me inspired. You asked what inspires me. It's the people out there giving me the positive energy. So thank you.
Of course. Well, thank you so much, Nancy. It was a joy to talk with you.